Hi, everyone. As you're joining, if you can drop in the chat where you're dialing in from, give us a sense of where you're, I almost use the word phony, but where you're zooming in from. I myself am in New York City. Wissam, where are you?
I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
Saskia?
So I already see some fellow Bostonians chiming in. Hi.
Águila?
I am in Idaho today, Driggs, Idaho.
Oh, I see. Oh, there's a ton of folks. Oklahoma, DC, Texas. There's Iowa, Des Moines, another New York, Oregon, Portugal. So we have a global contingent today. Thank you everyone for joining us. So thank you for joining us on for today's session, How to Listen Like a Coach, Coaching Skills Every Manager Needs. I am Alexis Mobley. I am your facilitator for this panel discussion. And high level, very briefly, I am going to introduce my panelists and kind of give you an overview of Bravely before we jump in. So we have Wissam El Khatib, we have Galia Pinnenkamp, and we have Saskia Howing. Each of these coaches, including myself, we're all Bravely coaches, experienced in this topic. And I want to mention that we welcome questions throughout our conversation this afternoon. We want this to be conversational in nature. You'll see one or two slides, and then we have like a little bit of a surprise for you at the end. It's a takeaway for you, so that you can gauge your level of listening as it relates to your day-to-day interactions. So again, my name is Alexis Mobley. We are here on this Bravely platform. So for those of you who are unaware, Bravely is a coaching platform that gives employees access to best-in-class one-on-one coaching. We offer those affordable per session pricing, coaching for as few as 40 employees and cohort populations such as managers, high performers, ERGs, etc. Bravely, I like to think of it as like that one-stop coaching platform for organizations. And I'm a little biased, but I think we have some of the best coaches out there. But again, I might be a little bit biased. So before we kick us off with questions, I wanted to ground us in two quotes that I think set the tone for today's conversation, as well as the approach your coaches on this panel take as they navigate day to day. So the first one is from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Second one, Stephen Covey. When you really listen to another person from their point of view and reflect back to them that understanding, it's like giving them emotional oxygen. Emotional oxygen. That's how resonant and powerful listening as a skill is, not only for coaches, but for leaders. And I would dare say, all of us humans in general. So I am going to kick a question over to our esteemed panel, and I want to hear your perspectives. You know, when you're thinking about listening and you're thinking about listening to respond, you know, what is listening? If you had to take a stab at it and explain it to a layperson, what is listening? Oh, don't make me put, I'll select Galia.
Well,
You know, I think that listening is just it's a beautiful way to be present with someone else. It is about giving them your full attention and letting them know that you're attending, because sometimes we think we're listening, but our body language and our actions are not conveying the listening. So being really mindful that it is a full body experience making sure that someone feels seen and heard, and understood, obviously, and seeking to understand what they're saying rather than thinking about, oh, I know what I'm going to say next. So.
Wissam.
I think I would add a quote to your quotes, which is said by Stephen Covey. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand; they listen with the intent to reply, which enforces what Galia said. And I think what I learned from the coaching industry is really being able to listen empathetically. Being able to sense the energy, see the body language, understand the body language, and the tone of voice. I mean, there's a lot you can tell from a person, from a coachee, when they say, oh, and I did this. This alone says a lot. I mean, this is like 1,000 words. The energy, the putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. This is being able to really understand what this person is trying to say. And to me, I think this is the highest level of active listening.
Saskia.
I love it. And what I like to add is also the factor of when listening, it's also embracing this power of curiosity and open-mindedness. And it's a beautiful skill to practice, a skill that we can ongoingly expand in. So there's always something new to learn and explore, and listening is such a powerful vehicle to bring that experience and to be able to connect with the other, with groups, with places, and with life.
I would add one thing, for me, listening is presence. It is demonstrating to that person that's in front of you, or the people that are in front of you, that they have your utmost attention. And I know many leaders are pulled in multiple directions. And I know many leaders are trying to multitask. And their presence is out of that space, out of that room. And so they, people can feel a bit disconnected. So, Wissam, I'll ask you, how can leaders, in their day-to-day engagements, demonstrate that they are listening to the folks that are in front of them?
Oh, it's a culture that leadership can embed in the company, in the organization. It's leading by example. It's when leaders do sit and listen and understand, and giving the space for others to say what they have on mind. And when they listen, they are able to maybe assess if there's an issue before it becomes a problem. That's what active listening will help leaders do, and it will also create an environment of collaboration, and an environment, and it would increase trust. Because when you're listening, people would feel comfortable to sit and talk to you and mention what's on their mind. So, I mean, that's what I have for this. What do you think?
Me personally,
anyone from the panel?
well, I will say that I agree with you. I think that, listening does develop and foster that sense of trust that must be modeled by that particular leader. Because if you yourself as a leader do not experience that sense of psychological safety, that sense of trust from your leadership, it is going to be very difficult for you to model that behavior to your team. So sometimes you have to be that agitator, that interrupter of behavior in order to demonstrate and foster that within your team. Saskia, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's so important that also in the top, that leadership is so aware of the importance of the skill of listening, and that they actively engage in coaching and foster a context, a safe space where people can share their voices and can be heard, and create opportunity for all to contribute and to create space where exchange can take place.
Kelly, I saw you nodding your head.
I would agree with everything that's been said. And I would also, I think as managers think about being good listeners and being good and adopting a coaching mindset and creating that coaching culture at the workplace, is to find moments when it's appropriate, right? We know that people are very busy and you cannot do it 24/7, even though we would love to. So finding those moments that are coachable moments and focusing on people's strengths and passions and having the emotional awareness to be able to read a room and know when this is a great opportunity for some coaching and when it's not, right? And so it's really, it's practice. I think all of us who are here as on the panel as coaches, we never stop learning how to increase our listening skills and our coaching mindset.
So here's a small pivot for you. Like it's very easy or easier, let me say it that way. It's easier to demonstrate in real life, in person to person, face to face, that you are listening to someone. There are certain body cues, context clues that the other person can pick up on. So how would you approach for a leader who is managing a distributed team where most of their meetings are on Zoom or Teams or Google Meet? How can they demonstrate that they are listening to that person or those folks on the other end of that virtual meeting?
If I may, by
Yeah.
paraphrasing, I mean, there's certain tactics here. It's being able to, first of all, understand the nonverbal cues. This is very, very important because there are a lot of things that are being said without words. This is one. Two, asking questions, clarifying questions. Three, being able to give feedback and really show interest in what's going on. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, I would add that, remember, taking notes, as all of us, I'm not sure about you all, but I as a coach take notes. I am listening and I'm also jotting down some key threads, some words. When you repeat the language that whoever's speaking and you're using their language to reflect back to them, they feel really seen and heard. So that's a very, that's a great one to use. And also remembering what this person may have talked about the last time you met with them. If you have a virtual team, remembering, like, Saskia, I remember last time we spoke, you were in the middle of a move. How is it? Are you settled in now? Something, just that question before a conversation that we have to do with work makes her feel like, wow, Gallia remembered that I was, like, last time we talked, my life was very nutty. So just continuing a thread of conversation, whether it's about work or even personally, is a really powerful way to show that you're listening and that you care, really. I think there's also the caring part that we haven't talked about much yet, but I'm sure we're going to get to it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that aspect of caring about the other person, seeing that other person as a whole human being and not being focused exclusively on your needs. And someone dropped in the chat, listening it's not focused on me, it's focused on that other individual. And so I wonder, from your perspective, when we're looking at people holistically and everything they bring to the table, how do you coach managers into being or displaying empathy for certain populations? So if we're thinking about marginalized communities, we're thinking about LGBTQIA+ employees, how do we ensure that they are actively listening and creating those cultures of inclusive work environments?
I would start by making sure that there is representation. So when engaging in conversations, making sure that all voices are heard, and also being very aware of what voices might need to be heard that are not in this meeting right now.
I would also throw in, I cannot stress Galia's point enough. As a leader, there has to be a foundation of caring for the people that you lead. If you don't have that, in my opinion, everything else can appear to be superficial. If you care about your employees, if you care about the people you lead, you want what's best for them. And part of that is understanding who they are, how they show up, listening to understand what they're saying, listening to convey back to them what you're hearing so that there are no miscommunications or false assumptions and interpretations. So I think you have to start with that foundation of caring for the people that you lead in order to be willing to lean into things that may not be comfortable for you, AKA actively listening, not to provide a solution, but to, I don't know, hear what that other person has to say.
I would like to add something. I love what you're talking about. Everybody's talking about the caring factor, and I'm going to bring something from my personal life, not from my professional life. And my sister is watching, Siri, and so she will agree to that. My father, who is 82 years old, he talks very slowly, and it takes him like 20 minutes to say a very simple thing. And what I've been practicing so much is giving him the space to say what he wants to say, because I care about him. He's my father. And I see a lot of people who are interrupting. Come on, just go on, just go to the point. But this person needs to say what's on his mind. And I feel so good that I'm able to do that with him. I bet that a lot of people can relate to that.
It's funny you say that, because we had a question that came in that says, it's a similar nature. How do you train managers or leaders to listen, to understand, be open to that feedback, not take it personally, and not feel as if they're under attack? Galia, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there's a few questions that I have used to help train or encourage leaders to be more reflective rather than defensive. And one of them is because we all know what that feels like. Someone says something and you feel attacked a little bit, right? You feel triggered, like, oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. That's what the head immediately says. And I think being able to take a breath and go, how true is that? And how true is that from their perspective? And what did I do? What did I unconsciously do or say or not say or do that may have led them to feel that was my intention? So really being sort of the silent observer of the situation, stepping away from it rather than being about you. So we talk a lot about the silent observer. If someone was observing the exchange, how we would see it, because it's hard not to personalize interactions when they're a little bit heated, and to have that that posture of defense. And the same thing goes, as we were talking about, when there's marginalized members of the communities and having all voices heard. Sometimes managers do that to such an extent that it's actually uncomfortable, right? Sometimes people don't want to speak, and making sure that people have permission and feel safe to either speak or not speak, and giving that space and time. And Wissam, I love that what I took away from your story about your father is the silence that you must have to have in order to give him the space and time to form the words and the thoughts. And silence is such a great way to listen sometimes.
Yeah.
Now let's take a little pivot. Because I know as coaches, we love to live in, and this is not a negative, we love to live in optimism. And sometimes that optimism can butt up against the realities of corporate cultures. There are corporate cultures that either may not support their employees, may not provide them with the tools. So in that example, if you are coaching someone who does not have the support of their leadership, or the culture is not supportive of, personal or professional development, such as this sort of webinar, such that active listening or any sort of training to further that skill is really off the table, what are some strategies that you would recommend for that individual that they can use on a very micro level within their team, showing up where they are?
May I jump in? There are 4 mind tricks, 4 tricks that your mind plays on you. Expectations, assumptions, regret, fear. I think it's the 4 agreements. I bet a lot of people read the 4 agreements for Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your words. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and just do your best. And practice mutual agreements instead of expectations. Expectations is between you and yourself. Nobody has access to this info. Assumptions means you don't know. Ask the right question, then you know, then you don't assume. Regret is an empty emotion, just learn. And fear is the manifestation of our mind. Fear is only acceptable when you are in clear and present danger. That's my takeaway.
I see lots of emojis that are coming across. Your responses really resonated. Saskia, any thoughts?
So, there's a YouTube video online, which I absolutely love. It's by Fred Kaufman. And just even 2 days ago, I was coaching a client, let's call her Sarah. And she got recently promoted, is now leading a team of 15 employees. And what she shared is that she has the inclination to provide solutions easily. So she wants to think along, but with that might have the tendency to control and to dictate too much. So we were exploring how to shift that balance from, needing to control and telling people what to do to, have the team decide when they need guidance. I directed her also to this video because, for her, we noticed the problem is like, I can't relate to them. I can't seem to see what motivates them. So we explored ways to how to empower instead of directing. And with that comes asking questions, really trying to understand what gets in the way of an individual, also not generalize the team, but what does each individual need? And for her to find a skill to become more comfortable in engaging in those conversations, this example shows how, first of all, bringing your non-judgmental mindset to a conversation. And let's say someone chooses a particular strategy in approaching a problem, asking, what assumptions were you taking into account here? Or what factors play a role in you making this decision? And then here comes the thing is having them share, but then not directly respond. So what people often do is when someone explains, they respond to it. But in this case, fully hear, be fully present, and then reflect back what you heard. So what we in this conversation did was really trying to practice and role play what it's like to not reply immediately to a statement, but to reflect back. So based on the circumstances, you chose ABC, and that led you to showing up, choosing this approach. And then also asking again, is that correct? Because while they hear you share back what you heard, it might allow them to see something else. And it can be even helpful to ask, is there anything else? And while doing so, like I do, just creating a pause and have them think. If not, so ideally based on what they see, what they know, the context they keep in mind, it makes complete sense that they choose this approach. And for you as a leader, it's so important to understand where your employee finds themselves at the moment, to understand, but to have them share. And then say, okay, thank you for sharing. Now, can I share what I also see? Maybe acknowledging I like this approach. And in addition, I wonder if there's something else here. You can start exploring. So for her, it made already a difference. She reported back to me yesterday. She said, I feel more relaxed. I can enter a conversation and really have the goal to connect and to understand and to listen to understand versus focusing on compliance and what needs to be done.
Saskia, many folks are asking if you can drop the name of the
Yes.
video in the chat. Many people are eager to understand that information. The one thing that I'm curious about is, again, as coaches, we deal in optimism, to help people navigate that ideal future, moving forward. How do you coach individuals who are resistant to coaching, who are resistant to feedback, who are resistant to entertaining the idea of active listening? They are consistently interrupting, they are consistently interjecting. How are you coaching that individual or someone who manages those individuals?
Alexis, it's sort of connected to your last question also about culture. When the culture doesn't support a coaching mindset and coaching culture, I think we have to remember that we can only control what we can control, right? And I think that as leaders, your team knows when you're telling the truth, right? They know you. So honesty, even when you're acknowledging and validating that, while we walk through these hallways with these beautiful posters of our work culture, we all know that it feels very intense and competitive and sometimes even toxic in these walls. And saying that and allowing people to, because when an employee or a team member hears a leader, a manager speak the truth, it's like, yes, thank you for acknowledging that, right? It's back to what Saskia was saying, acknowledging and validating even what's not being said and the feeling and what the environment feels like, I think is really important. And usually when I find that a leader that I'm coaching is telling me, wow, I have this team member, but they're not open to feedback, they're not open to coaching, they really are checked out. I'm like, okay, well, acknowledge that, right? And acknowledge why that might feel that way and how you also sometimes feel that way, right? Because we're all humans. And, as leaders, we want to influence and sometimes educate, influence, and get things done. But if we don't connect and get back to the caring part, it's really hard to inspire anyone to motivate. And we don't want to, we hope that our leaders are not leading through fear and, but rather through inspiration, motivation, and openness to understanding the why of the person that you're trying to motivate. Because my why may be very different than yours. And when I understand your why, it sure does make it easier to connect with you. So
I'd like to just connect to what you were sharing about, that importance of also understanding how you show up in meetings. So even being aware of some of those knee-jerk responses or the urge to interject. So when in conversation with someone, how would you rate your ability to fully hearing someone? And if there is an urge to, interject or to ask a question, sometimes I share, ask for permission. When you notice, and there's a part that's about self-monitoring, right? So even while in conversation, what's happening on your end, noticing it. And when you notice there is the inclination to take over, what if you could then choose to behave different, to pause, notice, and sitting with that next time?
I love that.
Sorry, go on, Alexis. I just wanted to add something, if I may. I'm not sure how relevant it is to this specific question, but it's just interesting how much active listening could give you the power to say, I don't know. See, most of the people, they listen to replies, so they dive into their thoughts, they're formulating a reply, and then they might reply something that was completely irrelevant. But when you're actively listening, you have the power to say, I don't know. As per this discussion, whatever was said right now is not enough information for me to formulate a reply. Please give me a couple of hours and I'll come back to you. It gives you that power to be that confident to reply, okay, based on what being said. So I think that's it happened to me, and I felt so comfortable in a board meeting to be able to say, I don't know. And that's powerful.
I will share the one thing that I had I was coaching a leader a couple months ago, and like this person has been a leader for decades, and they wanted to shift they wanted to enhance their coaching skills, and listening was one of them. They wanted to pivot away from providing solutions and then their direct reports would go off and execute, to listening to fully understand what the person was saying. And they're like, I've tried everything. I've tried so many things. Nothing is working. I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Hold up your hand. He held up his hand. I said, I want you to slap it on your thigh. He was like, okay, slap it on my thigh. I said, and I want you to count down in your head to 10 and count like on your fingers to 10. I said, and once you get to 10, then you can respond. Because what that is doing is you're interrupting, as Saskia said, your inherent ability to want to lean in and respond. You're not responding to what the person said because you didn't hear it. You're listening for that pause. You're listening for a deep breath. You're listening to interject. And so by interrupting wherever you can and monitoring yourself, it's going to be uncomfortable. We coaches acknowledge that. That's part of change and transformation. But if you can interrupt that thought loop to get more present in the moment, that may help you decide and determine what you want to say, if anything, in that moment, because you may find what you thought you needed to say does not need to be said at this particular moment. Now, I'm interested. Oh, Saskia, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that also the power of reimagining a past response. So even when you make the attempt or the intention is there to use this strategy and it did not work, it happened again, then afterwards, reflecting back at that conversation, imagining how else would I want it to respond? How will I next time respond? What is something I can change? Really imagining that will increase the chance that you will be more successful. Yeah.
I'm curious for you all, when you are coaching leaders, two-part question. How do you help them create coaching cultures within their organizations? You know, because they may have peers who do not believe in the power or the value of coaching, but they've seen it, they've experienced it, they've witnessed it, they know the benefit it can add. So how do you help them create that coaching culture? And then how do you help them measure that impact? What do they need to look for? I know that's a two-parter.
May I? What I've done with leaders is we go through the 6 leadership styles and how to use different or wear different hats at different occasions. So there's 6 leadership styles. There's the coercive, do as I tell you, which is micromanagement. There's the authoritative, come with me, it's a visionary leadership style. There is the affiliative, people come first, so it's creating harmony. It's basically creating emotional bonds. There is the democratic style. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What can I do for you? And there's the pace setter, do as I do, and there's the coaching style. What happens if we try this? What happens if we try that? So how can you wear different hats in different occasions? And through a leadership workshop that we've done, it's what, why, when, and how. What is the vision? That's authoritative. The vision, come with me. Why is the why behind the vision? It's affiliative. People come first. So it's what's in it for the team. That's where you get the buy-in. And then the when, everything has a time scale. What do you need? That's democratic. What do you need in order to do what you need? So you're basically setting them up for success by providing them all the tools and resources. And then in the how is when they come up with the action plan, which promotes accountability, ownership, delegation, empowerment, and you coach them through the action plan to make sure that they are doing the right thing. That's what I've done with some of the leaders, which was the feedback was extremely positive.
So how do you get them to then, navigate those relationships with their peers who are not bought into any of the things that you've just described, no matter the value, no matter the benefit? So I, as a leader, am like, yep, I get it. I'm sold. That works. And my peers are they think I might be a pushover or I'm too lenient. How do I, as a leader, how do I navigate that?
Alexis, I'd like to take a stab.
Go on. Yeah.
I think we treasure what we measure. We all have KPIs. We all have goals. There's performance reviews. If we're not measuring our leadership styles in terms of listening and being empathetic, all of those things, it really becomes, it's hard. It's hard to convince because data doesn't lie. When you have the data that says, look at my team, this team that I'm leading in this way, using all of those, the coaching, different leadership styles that he just explained, you see the retention, the satisfaction, the engagement, the promotion cycle, the teamwork, the collaboration, all of those things, all of the markers that we say we want. But again, most organizations don't measure those things specifically. And I think I love to work with HR teams in terms of measuring what we treasure. Measure what you treasure. We all know about the bottom line and the dollars and cents, but culture matters. And how do we measure culture in a way that's significant and scientific for those naysayers that say, I don't have time for that. My way, I've been doing it this way for a long time, and I'm everybody thinks I'm a great leader. Those, and I'm sorry that I just took on a white male voice, but anyhow, that's what I did.
Saskia, were you going to say something?
No, I think you already answered this question beautifully, so I can only echo your shares.
So I know we've talked about this before, but Galia was great with the response that when you find or you are coaching people, whether you're a true coach or you're a people leader, some folks are resistant. Some folks won't do homework. Some folks will not put any effort to change. Some folks don't want to change. And, again, Galia was really great with that response that there's only so much you can do. And I think many leaders, caring leaders, those ones who are really, enmeshed in the success of their teams, want what's best for individuals. And they want these individuals to succeed. But it's a known secret. You can't want it more for them than they want it for themselves. And so we have several questions from folks who are wondering, like, how do I get this person to do this? They're resistant to change. I want them to do this. At the end of the day, if you've tried all of the strategies, if you've tried to, create that psychologically safe environment, if you've been open with them, if you've asked those very tough upfront questions, what's happening, what's going on, if you've done all of that, you as an individual have to recognize that you've taken the journey as far as it can go. It is up to that individual how much further they choose to go. And I know for a lot of leaders that to your point, Gali, it does not align with the KPI, but it is one of those things that we have to own as leaders, that some things are just, they're not going to work out the way that we expect them to. So as a individual who, manages up for and is asking for more information, how do you, not a people leader, but how do you deal with leaders who are unwilling to provide that level of coaching or that level of feedback? What are some strategies that you can do where you are?
May I? Touching base on this question and what you said before, I think in communication, it's all about the environment you create. So it's like positive or constructive criticism versus positive feedback. So a leader can go and say, "You're doing a bad job. You can do it this way." That's an environment of defense. Whoever the recipient is stepping back and saying, "Oh, I did a mistake," so they are no longer receptive to change. But when you go with positive feedback, you create an environment of support. And then once this environment is created, you plant the seed of change and you connect this seed or this change to this person's growth, this person's dreams. All right. So this train of thought, which is positive feedback, create an environment of support, plant the seed of change. All right, is from a psychological perspective, this person is receptive to change. But most leaders, what they do is they come in with constructive criticism. You've done this bad, do it this way. And then they are defensive. So that's one of the things that I think that leaders, when they follow, they can really create a change with employees. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think it's sort of related to yours, and also I'm reading the chat about company culture. I think it's important to understand what people are rewarded for. What kind of behavior is rewarded is it to your point, like you cannot motivate someone if you're going into attack mode and that defense, that constructive criticism, it's typically not effective. Rarely, some people really want to be like, well, I'll show him, but rarely, it's usually more of a shutdown than a motivator. But I think that it's really important to understand what behavior, what conversation, what communication style is rewarded, and pay attention to that, because we often say we want everybody to be collaborative and be team players, and yet there's somebody on the team that's a really high producer and they're mean and they're rude and they're not very nice to people, and that person gets promoted. And you're like, well, wait a second, I thought you wanted to be nice and you want us to be team players and to be kind to each other and to listen. So like, which is it? So I don't have a solution, because I think it's it depends on the culture and the team and the leaders, but gosh, this is hard work. So there's no, it's not, I just hope those of you who came to this webinar to get the answers, we don't have them, but we're here to support and to think through, and it's having conversations like this that help get closer to what will work in our given situations, I think.
That's a great point, Gali. I think many people presume that as coaches, we have answers to all the problems, and we don't. We are here to offer thought partnership with folks as they are on their journeys to hopefully either provide an expansive view of the situation or allow them to feel a bit safer to open up about what is happening so that they can, jump back into this culture to navigate their way forward. One thing I do want to ask this group, I see we're coming up on the top of the hour, but I do want to ask your thoughts about, not all organizations are supportive or happy, places to work. And so if you have an employee or you yourself are a leader who have had previous not so great experiences opening up, sharing, how do you overcome that? Is that possible to overcome those feelings of trepidation in an environment such that you feel comfortable speaking up?
First of all, I just like to respond to it. I think it's acknowledging that the circumstances do not invite to share and speak up, and to find courage. Often what I discuss is, what values could you place out in front of you that would allow you to share and to open up, and also to assess what the potential risk is, and is that a perception or reality, and build trust that, if a bloody nose is created, that you can always clean up afterward. To really imagine all the hurdles that might be there, and also think about, why is this really, really important to me? And what is most important to also keep in mind while engaging in conversation.
Also, Alexis, to that point, to that leader who's been burned before and now is in a new organization, it's sort of looking for, identifying who, one person, a group of people who you think you can trust, and start the conversation slowly, sort of with things that are not such high stakes. I mean, I wouldn't go into a big Zoom meeting and say, by the way, but sort of just start the connection and friendship and go, is it really safe? Wow, it feels like this environment, y'all really are open, and people mention a lot of personal things in these meetings. Is that, and just ask others for help and support and guidance to navigate the new environment, I think would be really helpful. And find a trusted ally, a buddy, is always a recommendation. And I think even for those leaders that are trying to do the right thing, they also need to find their allies. They're there, right? You may not see them because sometimes the voice of negativity and not such great leadership is louder. But I encourage everyone to find your people that you can rely on and trust to continue your self-development and professional development, even if it's not a whole company-wide culture yet.
I would absolutely agree with that, Galia. Trusting just anyone can be ruinous. And you want to ensure that as you're showing up, if you were previously burned in an environment, that you don't out of the gate in this new organization experience that same thing, and set yourself up in a very not so healthy capacity. So before we wrap, I mentioned at the top of the call that we had a little surprise or gift for you all. So let me share my screen really quickly, and then Wissam is kind of going to give you, he's going to give you just like a quick, can everyone see my screen? Yes, yes.
Actually, Alexis, could you just show the five very quickly, just to the five types of listening?
There you go.
Yeah, just very quickly. These are the 5 levels of listening. Ignoring, I'm not involved. Pretending is it's when you're married or when you're with your partner for a long time, and you're basically, and you master these words, yes, no, okay, yeah, but you're not listening. Selective listening is like when you're reading a newspaper and your son says a bad word and you're like, hey, you said a bad word, come here. That's selective listening. Attentive is listening to reply and not listening to understand. Empathetic listening is the highest level of listening. That's where you see the body language, the facial expressions, the energy, and you are listening to understand. Just wanted to put this, and then let's see what kind of listener you are. Okay, so if you can go to the okay, so we want you very quickly to answer these 12 questions with a yes or no. So if you have a piece of paper, all right, or you can pull a piece of paper, just answer 1 yes, 2 no, whatever, and we will give you how much time, Alexis, for this slide?
We are rapidly running out of time, so a minute.
A minute, just yes or no.
Make
On
sure that
these?
make sure that you number them, because you're gonna
Yes,
need the numbers. So 1, yes or no. 2, yes or no. Yeah.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
if for those folks out there who are might be getting a little freaked out, like, oh my gosh, I don't have paper, I don't have pen, I wasn't prepared. No worries. You're gonna receive the slide afterwards. So no worries. We got you. But for those
All
who
right.
want to do it as we go along, 45 more seconds.
Yeah, and kinda is not an answer. But I can totally relate, because as I took this quiz, I was like, well, sometimes, maybe, in some circumstances.
Do you interrupt? I like that one.
If only Conda was the answer, because whoa, maybe sometimes. Okay, next slide.
Also, yes or no? I can see some of my weak points here.
Oh, it's so good to normalize. I see someone who says, is it bad if I answer yes to all of these?
Yes, it is bad.
And I think that when you get these slides and you do this, I know that we're all sort of in a work environment and work mindset. Think about how you show up differently in different environments. At work, how are you at work? How are you at home? How are you with your friends versus your family? So these are all just wonderful questions to reflect on as you go forward, and you will have these slides.
Are we ready, Wissam? For the big reveal?
Well, yeah, let's go.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to count the yeses and nos. Yeah.
There we go. Scoring.
Yeah. All right. Scoring. Now we're going to count the yeses and nos. So give yourself 2 points if you answered yes for question number 1. All right. Just write on a piece of paper. If you answered yes, 2 points. If you answered no, don't put any points. Second one. Give yourself 2 points if you answered no to questions 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Take your time. Well, we don't have much time, but make sure that, so it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and no, give yourself 2 points.
With who would you want to share this assessment as well, right?
And then give yourself 2 points if you answered yes to questions 2, 3, 11, and 12. So, all right, just now the big reveal is gonna come. So,
you ready?
I'll give you a little bit more time. So, go. Go. All right. So if you scored 20 plus points, you are a strong communicator. Kudos to you. If you scored 14 to 18, you're an average communicator. So there are some work to do. If you got 0 to 12, you need to start learning. You need to get yourself a coach. Contact bravely.
That is a great segue. Thank you for setting me up, Wissam. So again, as a reminder,
Oh, there you go. There you go. Lynette needs a coach. 12
Lynette, Lynette, for anyone within the sound of my voice, we are open to receiving you as a client, a partner. Bravely is here for you. Use the QR code on the screen to book a demo and learn more. I do want to thank all of my guests, and they don't know that I'm doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you want to remain connected with any one of the coaches, there are their LinkedIns. You can go, it's all cattywampus. But you can go directly to there, send them a message, say thank you. It is much appreciated. And for those who stuck to the end for the certification codes, that HRCI code is 63954. The SHRM code is 23-QRDF4. And again, you will receive this presentation after today and via email. So thank you all so much. We appreciate your time today. Thank you to all my panelists for a great conversation. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
See ya.